Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Right, so this evening we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, entitled Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Chapter 2, a Jamal delivered by the Vishnu Dutas, and we're going to read text 32. So I'll just chant the Sanskrit and then read the English translation. Atapi me durbhagasya vibhudottama darshane bhavitavyam mangalena inatma me prasiddhati. Okay, so here's the translation. So this is a Jamal speaking, which we'll get into who exactly Jamal is in a few minutes. A Jamal, not Jamal. Well, that's Jamal over there. A Jamil, Jamal. I'm going to say it right. Okay, so a Jamil is speaking. I am certainly most abominable and unfortunate to have merged in an ocean of sinful activities. But nevertheless, because of my previous spiritual activities, I could see those four exalted personalities who came to rescue me. Now I feel exceedingly happy because of their visit. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 54, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Which means association with devotees is recommended by all the shastras, scriptures, because by even a moment of such association, one can receive the seed for all perfection. In the beginning of his life, Ajamil was certainly very pure, and he associated with devotees and Brahmins. Because of that pious activity, good activity, even though he was fallen, he was inspired to name his son Narayan. Certainly this was due to good counsel given from within by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasuchaham hridi sannavishtam atasmatir ganapavanam cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, is so kind that if one has ever rendered service to him, the Lord never forgets him. Thus the Lord from within gave Ajamil the opportunity to name his youngest son Narayan, so that in affection he would constantly call Narayan, Narayan, and thus be saved from the most fearful and dangerous condition at the time of his death. Such is the mercy of Krishna. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. Lata Bij. By the mercy of the Guru and Krishna, one receives the seed of bhakti. This association saves a devotee from the greatest fear. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we therefore change a devotee's name to a form that reminds him of Vishnu. If at the time of death the devotee can remember his own name, such as Krishna Das or Govinda Das or Dasi, he can be saved from the greatest danger. Therefore, the change of names at the time of initiation is essential. The Krishna consciousness movement is so meticulous that it gives one a good opportunity to remember Krishna somehow or other. Om Meganitavanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshudhanmalitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Kam Karjavachavam Pangam Langayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dilitarinam Bansha Kaptribhishcha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right, I'll read the translation again. I am certainly most abominable and unfortunate to have merged in an ocean of sinful activities. But nevertheless, because of my previous spiritual activities, I could see those four exalted personalities who came to rescue me. Now I feel exceedingly happy because of their visit. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So the goal of life, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, is you could say love, but specifically it's love for Krishna. Prema Pumarta Mahan, that's the highest goal, love for Krishna. So if somebody has, you could say, preliminary faith in that, or some theoretical understanding or some desire to achieve that, which many of us do here, the question is, okay, what's the way to do it? And of course that's a long discussion, but practically speaking, there's certain things that may get in the way of us achieving that particular goal. For example, someone may be very money hungry, which means they're very eager to have money. One may be involved in toxic relationships or relationships of mutual exploitation, or relationships that don't have God or Krishna as the center. So one may be involved in such relationships, and the list goes on. There's a big list of things that may get in our way in relation to attaining the goal of Krishna. So therefore, the idea is that one should try, and by all means one should, live a morally pure life. A pure life. And practically that means to have Krishna in the center. And when we say Krishna in the center or God in the center, it means very practical action. So it doesn't mean just faith in God or faith in Krishna. It means to actually try to develop a loving relationship with Krishna. So, for example, within our own lives, some of us may be married here. And in those particular relationships, the spouses, they are, you could say, in many ways, expecting something from the other person, at least some preliminary action. So if someone says, "Oh, I love you so much, and I'll do anything for you, and you're the love of my life," and et cetera, right? All these poetic, poetic expressions, whether a man's telling a woman or a woman, whatever. All these poetic expressions, but if the person on the other side doesn't do anything, they just lay around all day, they lay around all day and they don't do anything, practically. They don't make any money, they're just laying there doing nothing for the other person, then you could say, what type of love is that? It's very shallow, superficial. So the idea is to have Krishna in the center, but to engage in activities in which we are expressing our devotion or love for Krishna. So therefore Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, "Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru." So he's saying you should bow down to me, you should think of me, right? Chant my name, etc. In this way you develop some affection for me, some love for me, and you will come to me. That's what Krishna's saying. So that's the idea, to live that type of life, which Krishna's in the center, but there's some practical activity to demonstrate our affection for Krishna. And therefore, that requires some training and some education. And therefore, a guru, a spiritual master. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, "Tadvidhi panipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadankshanti te jnanam ganinas tattvadarshana." So Krishna is saying that you should go to a guru and you should inquire and you should render service and you should surrender to the guru, a representative of Krishna. And the guru could enlighten you or impart knowledge. Why? Because they have seen the truth. Tattva darshanaha, they've seen the truth. So yes, I'm training education. So a person, you could say, that epitomizes this training and education or this morally pure life is a Brahmin. And a Brahmin is described in the Bhagavad Gita, particular qualities of somebody who's a Brahmin. And those qualities are samoddamas tapau saucham, shrantam arjavam evacha, jnanam viganam astikyam, brahma karma swabhavajam. So, peacefulness, self-control, knowledge, a firm spiritual foundation, honesty, and on, like all the good qualities you could think of a Brahmin is supposed to have. And a Brahmin does have, if they're a Brahmin. So a Jamil who we're reading about tonight, he was a Brahmin, practically a very high qualified Brahmin. He was a very highly qualified moral person, with all good qualities. And but some, you could say, misfortune or some unfortunate thing happened in his life. And when he was a young man, he wasn't super young, but he was young and he was married. He had a nice, qualified wife and children and so on. So when a Jamil went to go out to the forest and whatever, collect firewood for his guru, something like that, he happened to see a a woman and a man, and they were intoxicated, they were drunk, they're very, you could say, licentious and embracing. And it says their eyes were the woman's eyes were rolling in intoxication from being drunk and this and that. And this Ajamil, he became licentious, like lusty. This Ajamil, he became disturbed. He became mentally disturbed, attracted to this woman. Said she was a prostitute. He became attracted to her. And he just, in modern parlance, he just lost it. He completely lost it. And while going home, he couldn't get this woman out of his mind. There's a story about that, just on a side note. There was these two monks, and monks are single and this and that, so they don't have girlfriends and wives and all that. But so these two monks were walking, and apparently they're going to cross the river, and this woman, she wanted help across the river. So she said, "Oh, can you please help me?" And one of the monks said, "Yeah, sure, hop on my back." So she hopped on his back, and then they crossed the river, and then he set her down, and that was it. And then the two monks, they kept on walking, and then one of the monk who didn't put the woman on his back, he was just really frustrated and angry that the other monk could do such a thing. So they were walking, and then the monk who didn't do it, he said like 20, 30 minutes later, he said, "I can't believe you. I can't believe you did that. You shouldn't have done that. We're not supposed to do that," everything like that. And then the monk who, put the woman on his back to cross the river, he said, "Hey, I carried her for like 1 minute. You've been carrying her for the last 30 minutes, in the mind, So yeah, but the point is he couldn't get her out of his mind. Ajamil couldn't get her out of his mind. He was so attracted to her. So what happened is he apparently invited her into his house as a maidservant, and then he neglected his wife. He rejected his wife and his children, and he married this woman, and he had so many children and so on. And to maintain her and his children, he did so many horrible things. You could say immoral things, stealing and this and that, and plundering, and just doing whatever he can to get money to maintain this woman and his children. So this was in Kanyakubja by Kanpur. This is within India. This was happening. So then, as time goes, he became an old man. He was 88 years old, and he had a young son. So he named his son Narayan. He named his son Narayan, which is a name for God, Narayan. So upon naming the son that, he would always call the son, "Oh, Narayan, Narayan," and "Come get your food, Narayan," and whatever. He was very affectionately calling to his son. So indirectly, he wasn't, you could say, thinking of God, but he was calling the name of God, which was his son's name. So then, at the time of death, which was approaching, he was there on his deathbed, and then he saw a few of these very deformed, fierce-looking, hair standing on end, very intense-looking personalities with ropes coming to get him and take him to lower regions and punishment like that for what he's done in his life. Now, of course, within Krishna consciousness, the idea of these lower regions and hellish conditions, it is a temporary situation. It is not. There's no eternal Hell. There's no eternal hell. It's temporary punishment. But nonetheless, no one wants to go there, right? Whether it's temporary or eternal, no one wants to go there. Especially if it's eternal, but it's not, so it's good. Temporary. So these fierce-looking entities, they came to grab a Jamil with ropes, and I mean, you can imagine how terrifying that is. I mean, these people, there's actually pictures painted of them, if you want to take a look later for inspiration. One devotee actually, in his office, he keeps like pictures of these, because they're depicted within Prabhupada's books. He keeps pictures of these people. They're called Yamadutas, so like servants of Yamaraj. He keeps them in his office, where he's working. And then whenever he's not feeling Krishna conscious, or wherever he's, feeling like he wants to go into material life, he just looks at the picture. He goes, that's all right, I'll pass, It's on fear basis, So there's fear, there's duty, and there's love. So of course you want to be on the love platform where we do things out of that. But anyways, so they came for a Jamil, and he was terrified. So apparently sometimes what people do when they're really attached to somebody and they're leaving this world, they call out the name of the person. Even though that person, won't be able to help them and this and that. Still, out of effect, they just call out the name. So he called out the name, Narayan. And because it was the name of God or the name of Krishna, what happened is these Yamadutas were there about to take him, and then he called out that name, and then all of a sudden these 4 personalities came, which are called Vishnu Dutas. So these are the servants of Vishnu, they're the servants of Krishna. So they came, and quite a contrast. They're very, with their spiritual forms and, effulgences, and, they come to take people back to Godhead, to the spiritual world. So they came, and then they told him, stop, you can't take him. And then there's a whole conversation between the Vishnu Dutas, the servants of Vishnu, and servants of Krishna, and the Yamadutas, the servants of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. There's a conversation between them, which was a long conversation. But when it came down to it, the main point was that you can't take him because he called out the name of Narayan. He called out the name of God. He called out the name of Krishna. And therefore, Krishna is protecting him. You can't take him down, to be punished. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada's mentioned this point in the purport. He's saying that when we initiate devotees, Srila Prabhupada initiates devotees, when he accepts them as disciples, and when other gurus accept others as disciples, and parents, they name their children names of Krishna. So the idea is that even if they don't remember Krishna, at least they'll remember the names of their children or their disciples. And then they'll be, benefited like that. And there's many devotees who do that. They name their children different names. So Radhika or Sham or this or that. Oh, there's a Sham here, right? Mahahari and Sham. There's another Sham in the congregation too. Name for Krishna. So then he was saved. I mean, you can imagine how happy he must have been, right? A Jamil, oh wow, this is such a relief. I don't got to go with these guys, the Yamadutas. But it's not that he went directly to the spiritual world then, because he wasn't, you could say, fully Krishna conscious, or he wasn't, technically speaking, he wasn't calling out to Krishna, he wasn't calling out to God, he was just saying the name of his son. But he still, because of his spiritual activities, he did think of Krishna, but still he wasn't fully attached to Krishna or have that love for Krishna, and therefore he didn't go back to the spiritual world. So what did he do? Did he go back home and resume his activities with his wife and children? No, he didn't do that. What he did is he went off to a holy place within India, Hardwar, and there it said he perfected himself. So he engaged in very intense spiritual practices, and he became qualified spiritually, developed this love for Krishna, and then sometime later the Vishnudutas came back, and they said, "Okay, now you're ready to go." Anyways, it's something like that, not exactly, but. And he was ready. So it said that he gave up his material body and was his regained his spiritual body, and then he was taken back to the eternal spiritual world. So this is a happy story, happy ending. But of course, I mean, people upon hearing this, they don't want to, people don't want to think that, or people shouldn't think, okay, hey, well, Ajamal just did whatever he wanted, and I could just do whatever I want, and at the time of, death, I'll call out Narayana or Krishna, everything will be good. But you could say it's like a story of, like a cautionary story, to let us know that there's many things, whether it's, in Ajamal's case, it was a materialistic woman, or whatever, everybody has their, you could say, particular things they're attracted to or attached to or have an inclination to. So that's the idea, to be careful. And a very important thing to note is that, sometimes when we talk about Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, people, they have this conception of fear, People have this conception of fear. You have to fear God. And that may be true on some level, but ultimately, Krishna, he's an ocean of mercy. And the wonderful thing about an ocean, one of the things, which I mention quite often because I think it's a very good point, is that we cannot measure the content of the ocean. It's so vast. So similarly, Krishna's mercy is so vast, there's so much of it, we can't really measure it. And therefore, Krishna, he gave this Ajamil the intelligence. Here it says, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sanda Vishnu. He gave them the intelligence to name his son Narayan. So even though Ajamil became fallen, he became attached to this woman, and so on, so on, so on, and he was just leading a very, say, degraded life from his previous stance. Still, Krishna, within his heart, he gave him the intelligence to name his son Narayan. So he'd at least, on some level, be remembering him. So you could say that's the mercy of Krishna. And here also it's talking about the association of devotees. So the association of devotees, or the servants of Krishna, or devotees of Krishna, is of the utmost importance because devotees are the ones who inspire people in Krishna's absence. Means Krishna is always present, but sometimes we don't realize Krishna's presence. Oftentimes we don't realize Krishna's presence. So if we don't realize Krishna's presence, at least we have some devotees around, and the devotees can inspire us by their words and so on, by their example. And therefore, a fortunate person or an intelligent person, they take advantage of the association of devotees, and they do not, you could say, lose the opportunity or miss the opportunity. Because after all, I mean, it really is so much of our life, we are associating ourselves with people all the time. Unless people are like, what do you call recluses? They're just solitary people, confinement or something. They put themselves in solitary confinement. Generally, the people, they like being around other people. So the idea is to choose, okay, who do we want to surround ourselves with? And based on who we surround ourselves with, we'll get a particular result. So Krishna is the reservoir of pleasure, and devotees are connected to Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure. That means he's an unlimited reservoir of pleasure, and devotees are connected to him. So if people want happiness, which everybody does, then they should connect themselves with devotees who are connected to Krishna. And the spiritual literature from India explains, like the Bhagavatam and many other books, that practically speaking, that is how we have to go through devotees to be connected with Krishna. It's not a one-on-one type of thing in the beginning. And some people don't like this. I mean, there's many churches. If you go all over SanDiego, all over the world, there's many churches. And you know why there's so many churches? Because they all disagree on certain points. Which, okay, fine, I'm not faulting them for that. Okay, everybody's got their opinion. But they all disagree on certain things. Some say you need somebody to connect you with God. That's one branch of a particular church, as they say that. Some other churches say, no, you don't need someone to connect you. You could go directly, you and God. And then there's some worship Mother Mary. Some think you don't need to do that. On and on and on and on and on and on and on. So in Krishna consciousness, we have this idea that we go through Krishna through the devotees. That's how we get to Krishna. And again, some people don't like this. There was a particular case with Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Harekrishna movement, and he had a particular disciple in San Francisco who didn't like this idea. And he wasn't seen for a few days, and then Srila Prabhupada was sitting there with some of his disciples, and then this boy came in who was his disciple, and the boy was crying, and he was crawling towards Prabhupada. So this is back in San Francisco. There was a lot of acids. So who knows? Maybe some acid was involved. I don't know. Things get a little weird when you add mushrooms and acid. Things get a little strange. Who knows? I don't know. So anyways, whatever the case was, he was crawling there towards Srila Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada came up, and then he came up to Prabhupada, and he was crying, and then the boy put his head on Prabhupada's lap, and then Prabhupada was, caressing and saying, "What's wrong, my boy? What's wrong, my boy? What's the problem?" And he said, I want to go to Krishna directly." And then Prabhupada said, "Oh, what do you mean you want to go to Krishna directly?" And he was crying, "I want to go to Krishna directly. I don't want somebody to be in between me and Krishna. In other words, I don't want you to be in between me and Krishna. I want to go to Krishna directly." So he was just crying. And then Prabhupada was just talking with him, and then he just stood up, and then he stormed out, and that was it. I don't know if he ever came back. But, people have problem with this sometimes. But whatever the case is, that is the idea, to go through the devotees, or you could say be connected with the devotees, so be connected with Krishna. So Krishna's not alone. He's with his devotees. So that's an important point to remember. And this is, you could say, the glory of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, a particular temple we're in. There's many temples all over the world. Is that it gives the opportunity for association with devotees. That's the whole point. And I'll just end on one last thing, is that there was one devotee by the name of Tamal Krishna Goswami, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And he said that if you serve Krishna, then the guru is pleased. Then the spiritual master is pleased, because the spiritual master wants you to serve Krishna. And then he said, if you serve if you serve the Guru, then Krishna's pleased. Because Krishna wants you to serve the Guru. And then he said, if you serve devotees, he said, both Guru and Krishna's pleased. So if we want to please our spiritual master, our Guru, or we want to please Srila Prabhupada, and Krishna, then we should serve devotees because they'll be pleased by both of those activities. So that's what say fortunate or intelligent persons do. They try to serve devotees in different ways. So this is the brief synopsis of the historical account of Ajamil and him being saved from the Yamadutas. So whatever you want to take from that, that's up to you. I'm not in your mind. So whatever you want to take from that is completely up to you. And hopefully you take something that will inspire you or encourage you in your journey to love for Krishna. So does anyone have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to say? Don't be shy. I had to give up my shyness to give the talk. Okay.
When you do mantra, when you say Hare Krishna, what do you normally do with your mind? Do you concentrate on the words, or I know you must be doing different things, but normally can you tell us some of your secrets?
Secrets, huh?
Do you play with Krishna, or do you remember the scriptures, or?
There's different things you could do. Srila Prabhupada would give different recommendations. Like one time, devotee was saying, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, my mind, and my mind's out of control. It's going here, it's going there, it's going everywhere. What can I do to control my mind?" Because sometimes, that is the case, right? It says the mind's like a monkey, right, jumping all over the place. So Bhagavad Gita, it says we should control the mind. But sometimes it's difficult. So this is what this devotee was telling Prabhupada. So Prabhupada said, what's the question of the mind? He said, you chant and then you hear. What's the question of the mind? So you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And you hear it. That's it. Don't focus on the mind. Because if you focus on the mind, is my mind peaceful or whatever, there's like a million things the mind wants to go over on a regular basis. So the idea is to try to just focus on the mantra, hearing. And Srila Prabhupada would also say sometimes, if you can't focus on the mantra, then you should chant louder. You should chant louder. So that's recommended in spiritual leaders that during kirtan we chant very loud because the sound overpowers the thoughts of our minds. Because sometimes we're too much in our mind. Sometimes they call it being self-conscious, right? You don't want to dance, you don't want to look funny or something, so you're just kind of not dancing, right? Because you don't want to look funny. But you got to get out of that. Just get out of the mind. Just chant loud, and Prabhupada had the Swami step. You put your arms up, and right foot over left foot, like back and forth. So different things. Also, in another case in San Francisco, again, Srila Prabhupada was there. I mean, this is probably one of the most unique, interesting accounts of Srila Prabhupada going around the world. One of the most interesting accounts that I've heard, Srila Prabhupada in San Francisco. He's in Haight-Ashbury. This was like the thousands of hippies were there in the 60s and 70s. Srila Prabhupada was right there in the middle of all of it. So there's a lot of different stories about that. But so one man he was in the audience and he was saying, Swamiji, he said, my mind, it's just driving me crazy. She probably said, oh, maybe you should give up drugs or something. No, but anyways, no, my mind is driving me crazy. What can I do? And then Srila Prabhupada said, well, he said you should chant Hare Krishna. That was his answer. You should chant Hare Krishna. And then he kept on saying, my mind, but my mind, but my mind. And then Prabhupada said the same thing, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. He said, this is my only medicine. So that's the idea, that Hare Krishna mantra, that is the medicine to help us, you could say, become spiritually well again. And it's a healing process. So healing process takes some time, just like when I remember one time, anyways, we have a temple in Tijuana. So I went there and I gave the Sunday feast talk, and crossing the border, getting back, you get back at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, something like that. I was like, oh my God, it's really late. And then I get up at 4. Actually, I get up at 3:30 on Mondays because I have to do some altar service. So I got back really late. I was really late. And then what happened is they locked the doors in the temple. And I was thinking, oh, this is really bad, And I didn't have the key. So then I somehow or other, I won't tell you which way I went, but somehow or other I climbed in such a way on one of the parts of the building, and I climbed up into a window on top, and then I came in. I had to do that the other night too. I scared one of the devotees. I scared one of the devotees because the other night it was locked against. I tried to open the window, and then first of all, he told me he heard somebody. It was Jamal. He told me he heard somebody talking in the hallway. And he wasn't expecting anybody because we had some guests over. He wasn't expecting them though. He was sleeping. And then after that, he hears someone trying to open the window, which was me. And then he sees a shadow, on the roof, walk by. So I completely freaked him out. So then he opens the window and he goes, "What's going on?" And I go, "Oh, they locked me out." So then when I went through the window, I said, "Sorry, what can I do?" So maybe I should get a key, huh? But not this last time, but the time before that, I was, scaling the walls or whatever I was doing, and I made my way up. And then the next day, my arm was really hurting. Actually, it was really sore. I could hardly move my arm. And at the time, I didn't feel any pain, when I was trying to climb up into the window. But apparently, I hit my arm. And then for quite some time, at least a week, my arm was hurting and I couldn't do certain things. This devotee felt bad because he was the one who got locked me out. But anyways, the healing process, that's the point. The healing process, it takes some time. It just didn't okay, the next morning I was healed. I got injured and I was healed. My body was injured and I was healed. But it takes some time. So similarly, the chanting, it takes some time to actually take effect. And the more sincerely, the more fervently, the more we do it in a concentrated way, the best in association with devotees, then the more the healing process will take effect. So so this idea of patience. So hearing and chanting and not thinking of the mind, maybe chanting louder, and then understanding the fact that it does take time. Yeah. Just on a side point, in San Francisco, when I was talking, there was one woman, and it was 2 a.m. in the morning, and she apparently was taking hallucinogenics, acid or whatever, and then she went to Srila Prabhupada's door, and she knocked on the door, and then Prabhupada answered the door. And then she was looked all out of her mind, kind of crazy and everything, and then she made some noise, yelled at him or something, and then she actually went into his room, pushed him out of the room, and she locked the door. And then he was there at 2 a.m. in the morning in the hallway. And then he went down the hall to Mukunda Goswami's room, and he knocked on the door. Oh, this woman, she locked me out. So then he had the key, so then they got her out, and then the next morning this woman showed up for class, when Prabhupada was giving class. And then Prabhupada was just laughing at it. He said, oh, you locked me out, and he kind of imitated her making some sound, like, oh, whatever she was doing, so she was laughing about it. And there's a whole bunch of little... So what else were you going to say? You're going to say something?
The other thing is that if your mind is in real trouble and you want to do your rounds of mantra, would it be all right to play some very devotional music that you're very, very fond of, which soothes you, and do the mantra within you? Or maybe even see a movie of Krishna as a baby, with his mummy and all that, and then at the same time do the mantra within you, so that you can still do the mantra.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Well, one thing is that, you could put on some chanting of Prabhupada chanting japa, or there's other devotees chant japa, but yeah, usually it's not advised to put on like a kirtan or something. I guess you can, but I kind of... Oh, classical music. Yeah. Okay, so classical music. This is the first time I've heard this question. Classical music while you're chanting Hare Krishna. Well, if you putting classical music on and chant Hare, if you're going to chant more Hare Krishna than you would without classical music, then maybe you should put classical music. But generally, it's not recommended. Yeah. But one of the main things is, you could say there's mechanical things like, you want to sit properly and, be well rested, and you don't want to be too comfortable or something. Sometimes devotees would tell me they would try to lay down and chant. Yeah. Well, whatever inspires you to chant. So that's the point. So, does anyone have any other questions or comments? Yes, Christian.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the wonderful class. I really liked your account of the devotee who had the Yamadutas up on pictures. I think I've been going through some situations with controlling myself in dire situations, and maybe if I saw some Yamadutas, I would definitely take a second thought. So thank you.
Scare some sense into you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, the situations are kind of scary, and I wanted to chant, but I decided to do something else, and sometimes my mind likes to divert. So Yamadutas, maybe I'll have that on my phone.
Well, if that inspires you, then yeah.
Any practical advice for chanting loudly inside of a house when other people are home?
Well, I mean, that could be a little complicated because maybe they don't want to hear you chanting loudly. But maybe go to your car, roll up the windows, and chant, chant, chant. So I do that sometimes. While driving, usually, Sing kind of loud. So that's fun, yeah. Yes. And beneficial.
So you were mentioning, you were speaking on the subject of going through the devotee to reach Krishna. And it reminded me, I don't know if this is from a song by one of the acharyas, maybe you could say where it's from, but there's this line or a quote, it says, "Krishna is yours and you can give him to me." So does that mean, so in relation to going through the devotees, is it easiest to reach Krishna through the devotees? And is our relationship with Krishna, is it more thorough when we go through the devotees, or how exactly is it enhancing our endeavor in a relationship with Krishna?
All right. Yeah, so there's a song that Jamal's quoting, and in the song it says that one devotee, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he is writing in this song that, writing to a guru or to a Vaishnava or to a devotee, he's saying that you have Krishna and you have the power to give Krishna. So please give me Krishna. One time, in relation to that, Prabhupada was in India, and his disciple Shama Sundar, Prabhu, and Malati Devi was there, and they had a little girl. That was their girl, Saraswati. So Saraswati had this little statue of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, he was meeting with a few people there, and Prabhupada somehow got this statue of Krishna when Saraswati wasn't looking. He, stole Krishna. And then he had Krishna behind his back. And then he said, Saraswati, where's Krishna? And then Saraswati said, I don't know, where's Krishna? She was like 3 years old or something. Oh, where's Krishna? I don't know, where's Krishna? And then she started kind of getting a little emotional. Oh, where's Krishna? She was looking everywhere, where's Krishna? And then she realized, she said, oh, you have Krishna. And Prabhupada, yeah. And then he put Krishna out, and I have Krishna here. So, but yeah, that is the fact that the devotee has Krishna, because the devotee has, you could say, won Krishna's favor. But, and factually, the spiritual master, the guru, does give the disciple Krishna, but the disciple doesn't realize it in the beginning. Because the holy name of Krishna is Krishna. Because God's absolute, Krishna's absolute, so the holy name of Krishna is Krishna. There's no difference. So at the time of initiation, one formally gets the mantra Hare Krishna from the spiritual master, and therefore they have Krishna, actually. But just as a young child may not have, or actually doesn't have, the understanding of a diamond when they have it, similarly, the disciple in the beginning doesn't have the understanding that they have Krishna. And over time, when the child matures, they'll understand, oh, this is a diamond. So similarly, over time, when the disciple matures, they'll understand this is Krishna, the holy name of Krishna. So it's a system where there's Krishna, and then there's Lord Brahma, and there's Narada, then there's Vyasa. There's this whole disciplic succession of gurus and students. So the idea is that I surrender to, or serve, or become a disciple of a guru, a devotee, who has in turn surrendered or became a disciple of his guru and going all the way back to Krishna. So in this way you're connected with Krishna via this disciplic succession. And yeah, the idea is that it's the spiritual master, the guru, is like there to train the disciple how to serve Krishna. So it's not that directly you just serve Krishna all of a sudden, but the disciple, or the guru, trains the disciple. So, yeah. There's a story with this. There was a man in South Africa there was a big diamond rush, and he wanted to go out and find the diamonds to become wealthy. So then he sold his property, his farm, and he rushed off to find diamonds. So then the man who bought his property, he went down to the river that was on the property, and he collected some rocks there, and he brought them up and put them on top of his fireplace. And in the meantime, that man was, going over the country trying to find diamonds. So the man who was on the property, he got those rocks, put them on his fireplace, and another man came by and he said, "Oh, what are those rocks up there?" And the man said, "I don't know. There's just a bunch of them down by the river. I'm not sure what they are." And then the man said, "Oh, that's a diamond." And it was one of the biggest diamonds in the world. And this man who bought the property, he was literally just tons of diamonds were on his property. And that other man, he just went traveling looking for them. So that's the idea that, the diamonds, or you could say Krishna consciousness, or the happiness, the joy of the soul is available. It's there within us, and not to go, searching all over the universe for it. Just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. All right, so now we're going to do that. Hare Krishna.